So why are we fighting? Why is that when I say Facebook should not be the arbiter of truth, they smear me and they lie about me? Well, I'll tell you what. All that's really been happening in the culture war is the empowerment of the elites, the corporations, and the status quo to shut down independent voices. Occupy Wall Street, I feel like, was a big wake-up call. You had left-wing, right-wing, libertarian there in those first few days, I kid you not. And they all agreed the 1% was the problem. Race, creed, color, etc., national origin, sex, none of that mattered. What mattered was banksters and corporations and revolving door policies led to the collapse of the economy in the United States and around the world. And it negatively impacted the working class. But something started to happen that immediately disrupted calls for class justice. Racial identitarianism started to emerge, and people started claiming you were a racist or bigot if you didn't bend the knee. Sure enough, slowly but surely, within a few days, the older Republican types were gone, and within the first week, it was just a bunch of college students pushing racial identitarianism. And this is just, I think this is a big problem. And I think it's one of the big problems we face. It is, like, identitarianism splits the left. But look at it this way. When you look at a wealthy, multi-millionaire, billionaire even, who happens to be black, well, back in the day, you could say, I don't care if you're white, black, Asian, whatever. If you're one of these banksters who crashed the economy with your ill-thought-out policies, then we need some accountability. But the narrative changed after Occupy Wall Street. Instead of challenging the 1%, what are we doing now? Blaming people based on arbitrary skin color? So here's what happens. You end up with Serena Williams, okay? I'm not trying to be a dick, but she is one of the most powerful individuals in the world, period. Period. There are very few people who have more power than she does. Very few. Maybe in the thousands. She is a multi-millionaire, extremely famous, strong, and talented individual. But she's complaining about marginalized groups and depression. How does that make sense? How do we come to a point now where the argument has flipped from challenge the big corporations who are suppressing, individuals and shutting down the poor to see that white homeless guy over there? He has privilege. How do we get to a point where you could actually argue that a homeless guy laying in his own waste in San Francisco is somehow more privileged than someone like Serena Williams? How do we get to the point where the ACLU is actually defending overt racism at Harvard? Where the school actually says if you look a certain way, they will make it harder for you to get in. The left used to be about class, but something happened, and now we have a corporate elite, big business tech oligopoly, Mark Zuckerberg, Sergey Brin, Sundar Pichai, even Jack Dorsey to an extent, although I think he's kind of a figurehead. Super wealthy tech elites pointing the finger at poor white people and saying they're the problem. What do we see in DC for the free speech rally? A bunch of American citizens of limited power and authority, some more powerful than others, speaking out against massive corporations. And what happened? Antifa is convinced their enemy is not the elites. This is the millionaires, those who control the banks, those who run these big, massive companies. They're convinced it's the Americans. They're being told the problem isn't the rich people. The problem isn't the elites who are unaccountable. It's your fellow working class and lower class individuals. And there we see Antifa becomes a tool for Facebook and Google and massive international tech oligopolies. These Antifa activists show up and threaten and intimidate those who would challenge the big corporations. Take a look at all the smears that are coming out right now against me and everyone else. Why are they defending Facebook? It makes no sense. If we're going to have a summit and talk about these issues...
I am altering the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further.
Trump to win with Cambridge Analytica and giving out private data they shouldn't have? Shouldn't you be in agreement? Whatever your political ideology is, we should challenge unaccountable massive corporations? No. These people have been convinced it's not the unaccountable billionaire elites. It's not the multi-millionaire politicians who, for some reason, on a salary of $174,000 are now worth hundreds of millions of dollars. It's not them. It's not. It's that poor white guy who doesn't know why his factory was shut down, so he voted for Trump. It's that middle-aged woman who's wearing a Trump hat. They're the enemy. It's long been said on the left that the rich people will point to the poor and blame immigrants or other poor people to convince you it's not them. Why then does Antifa show up and threaten poor American citizens? Andrew Yang brings up good and interesting points, and of course he gets smeared for it. He says that he's campaigning to address all of the issues that got Donald Trump elected, one of which is automation. People who are losing their jobs. I have tremendous respect for that. He's not, he's been critical of Trump for sure, but he's saying, listen, people lost their jobs in middle America and they didn't know why, and Trump came and said, I'll bring your jobs back. Andrew Yang is saying we need a more forward-thinking solution. Because of this, they smear Yang and Gabbard as the alt-right Democrats. I'm not exaggerating. They call them this. So when I come out and say those are the people I support as a left-wing individual, they say, go figure, supporting the alt-right Democrats. It's absurd. Tulsi Gabbard, anti-war alt-right Democrat. Vox called her position on war conservative. So here we are. This is the current state of our politics.
Impressive.
It's very convenient for the status quo elites, whatever you want to call it, the ivory tower billionaires, those who control industry. Is it any wonder we're seeing the Koch brothers and George Soros agree on censorship of hate speech on social media? No, they're both in agreement. Make the poor people fight each other. Get the middle class, people of color to point their finger at the poor white people and blame them for their ills. And then none of the problems actually get solved. These big companies with unaccountable billionaires running media, running tech, telling you what to think and feel, it's no wonder. They're supporting policy that exacerbates the culture war and racial identitarianism. It suits their needs. But I think it might actually cause a rapid destabilization and make things worse. I'm not saying there's a grand conspiracy. I'm not saying it's intentional. I'm saying that's what's happening. Whether or not someone wanted it to happen, what we're seeing now is left-wing activists blaming the working class. There was a protest in Seattle in an Amazon building. A bunch of young socialists came out saying that Amazon wasn't paying their workers fairly. So a bunch of actual laborers came out yelling Trump, shouting them down. These people on the left claim to represent the working class. They don't. The working class are middle-aged, dudes who voted for Trump, who want their jobs back, who want to work in a factory, who are union guys. And what happens? How did Trump break the blue wall? Right? Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Ohio, I can't remember exactly which states. Trump wasn't supposed to win there. Hillary Clinton thought she would win, but she